Senator Joe Manchin, Democrat of West Virginia, slammed President Biden for making offensive and disgusting comments about shutting down coal plants at an event in California on Friday. Biden gave remarks at the corporate headquarters of Visant, a global communications company, to promote the CHIPS and Science Act, which he signed into law in August to provide $50 billion dollars in incentives to the domestic manufacturing of semiconductors. Biden said that generating electricity from wind and solar energy is cheaper than generating it from coal and oil. He said people are not building new coal plants because they cannot rely on it. We're going to be shutting these plants down all across America and having wind and solar, he said. Manchin said in a statement on Twitter that Biden's comments ignore the severe economic pain that Americans are feeling because of rising energy costs. Comments like these are the reason the American people are losing trust in President Biden and instead believe he does not understand the need to have an all in energy policy that would keep our nation totally energy independent and secure, he said. Manchin, who has been a major advocate for coal plants during his time in the Senate, an industry that is still a large part of West Virginia's economy, said Biden has never mentioned to him a plan to shut down coal plants. Manchin added that Biden owes an apology to coal workers in West Virginia and across the country who have lost their jobs, being cavalier about the loss of coal jobs for men and women in West Virginia and across the country who literally put their lives on the line to help build and power this country is offensive and disgusting, Manchin said. He said Biden's position seemed to change based on the audience and the politics of the day, and politicizing the country's energy policies will only lead to higher prices. Manchin was a key vote in approving Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, a climate, health care, and tax package that provided tax credits and incentives for Americans to turn to cleaner energy sources while bolstering some fossil fuel production on public lands. So, I'm going to give Manchin credit on one thing, which is where he says that Biden's positions seem to change based on the audience and the policy. That is true because if you go on any of these fact checker websites, you can find where you've had analysis on Biden's constantly changing views. This is a person who used to be anti Roe v. Wade and now is for it. There's plenty of support of the Iraq War, just like a whole bunch of like positions that have just been all over the place. Um, what's really so there's this term, and I don't really use it that much, but it's called clutching your pearls. And it's where an individual or a group of people take something, like it could be a statement, it could be an action that somebody did, and they try to make it sound like it was this really horrendous thing. How could they do this, etc., etc. Now, look, Biden is someone who's known for talking off the cuff, making gaffes. And maybe there was a more eloquent way to say we're going to be shutting these plants down all across America and having wind and solar. And like also relate the fact that the people who have these jobs need to be given some kind of other employment that is within the same industry, or some jobs that are related to doing things with the environment or with energy. You can make the criticism that he could have spoken about it in a more nuanced and more concerned way. I can agree with Manchin, I guess, on that. But when when you read his statement about how he owes the coal workers in West Virginia and across the U.S. who lost their jobs an apology because of a comment he made. I mean, I just don't see it, because when you have companies that are not being assisted by their state governments, by their local governments, um, shouldn't that be more of an issue of the state being something that's? I mean, one should already know with the various governors, a lot of them who supports fossil fuel and these different companies theoretically would be much less inclined to back Biden's proposal of shutting all these different places down, to go forward with this new form of energy. So wouldn't you take issue with them allowing these places to be shut down instead of going after the president for making a comment that wasn't worded as properly as it could have been. But you know what drives me crazy about Manchin, and it's like I cover him as often as I do because he's so interesting in the sense that he's this Democrat who almost every time he has something to do with his party, it's the opposite of what they want. It's against what they want. You know, he's the um, poster child of firing into the other team's goal. But it's like this is a guy who shut down Build Back Better, this program that was going to help people. You could say that he owes them an apology. This is a guy who voted and was the only Democrat, if anyone remembers, for Kavanaugh after the Christine Blasey Ford allegations came forward and after multiple progressives voiced their discontent with his voting record as well. Um, and you could say, because we know that Kavanaugh voted to repeal Roe v. Wade, that Manchin owes women an apology. So this is, I guess if you want to get bogged down in the game of who's had a more who really owes apologies for the types of decisions they made, I would be more inclined to point the finger at Manchin because I think he does a lot of ridiculous stuff and pretty much gets away with it because people don't pay attention to the news. And he's very lucky that most Americans don't follow this stuff as often as I do and know about his voting record. Because if most of the people in West Virginia knew how bad he was and how often he votes against their own interest, he would have been gone before, what was it, 2018? He would have been done. And sure enough, he got a hell of a lot less votes when he ran for re-election than he did the first time around. So he's just this pearl clutching conservative Democrat who it's like what why are you even with this party? You agree with Biden on basically nothing. That's why I said if the Republicans get a majority in the Senate and like let's say they get like 52, 53, 54 votes, the only good thing that comes out of that in the short term is that at least people won't sit around and act like Manchin matters as much as they do now. Because there's no purpose in having a Democratic senator who's just going to vote against his own party on pretty much every pivotal major piece of legislation. And then we're supposed to play patty cake and friend with him because, oh, we don't want to lose his one vote even though we probably don't have it anyway. So I really look forward to the dynamics of the Senate shifting in a few days possibly, depending on how this midterm goes.